Well, hi everyone. My name is Sam B, and I am here today hosting probably one of the most exciting Zooms that it's physically possible for me to host. I am here with the writer and director of Red, White, and Blue, Nazrin Chowdhury, as well as the brilliant Brittany Snow, who plays Rachel, a single mom from Arkansas seeking abortion care. We will talk about that plot point a little later in the conversation. And the wonderful Mo Collins. We are going to talk about Red, White, and Blue today, and I could not be more excited. Thank you so much for joining.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks
Oh
for
my
having
gosh.
us.
Oh, okay. Well, full disclosure, Nazrin and her executive team asked me to hop on board this project as an EP to help increase visibility and host fun events such as this. And I have to tell you, it is truly my honor because I really believe in this film. And I think it is a piece of art that really meets this moment. So we're starting with really a lot of compliments. And to the people who are watching this, if you have a chance, I want to tell our audience to watch the film if you are able prior to watching this Zoom, because we are going to talk about spoilers. We are going to reveal some spoilers, and you will benefit from having seen the film first. So, Nazrin, I'm going to start with you because this came out of your incredible brain. Can you talk about the genesis of this project? What was the catalyst for this? How did this all begin?
Well, first of all, thank you for joining us as EP because you have been fighting the good fight and doing the good work for the longest time. So it's very meaningful to, I think, myself and everyone on this project that you would just see us and be on this journey with us. So thank you. The genesis of this was, in June 2022, the Supreme Court really effectively struck down Roe v. Wade. And then the very next month, we were hearing, and this is something I kind of haven't spoken about in terms of the real genesis of this, is the 10-year-old who had to travel from Ohio in order to get the necessary abortion that she needed. And it was all over the news. And sadly, even though it was in the news because of the Supreme Court's decision the month before, it's not sadly the only incident of this. It's not an isolated incident. And to just have a choice that has been so egregiously taken away from someone in the first instance that has resulted in them needing to have this health care, to have that met with their choice taken away a second time or obstacles put in that path, I felt that I needed to do what I could do as a storyteller, which is to tell just one story in a fictional scripted narrative, which gives me more room and license to just examine the characters in the way that I wanted to examine them and take you on a journey with them as if you were right there in their world with them, experiencing this and feeling it so much so that you would be minded to think, well, I know I vote in one way. I know I think in another way. If you are maybe not as supportive of people having this access to the healthcare, in theory, that may feel it's okay to act a certain way, but what does it feel like in practice? And if you could imagine someone like that as your family member. So that's what the genesis was.
So it's making something very real. Because I do feel like when these stories are out in the world and they're just multiplying and everybody's talking about it, everybody's hearing about it, it can almost become theoretical or really ephemeral. So what I really think that Red, White, and Blue captures so well is the individual story. Can you talk about the inspiration, the writing? Was it fast? Did it take a long time? Was it an agonizing process of drawing
It
it out?
happens super fast, I think, sometimes like I'm on this call with Mo Collins, who I've written an anthology episode for that is entirely about her character in our show. And, you're on a tight timeline for TV shows where you have to write and get it done. That certainly helps. But with original material that is not an established show and that you're not breaking in a writer's room, sometimes that can be a journey and it can be a real Sisyphean task. But this was not that, because the idea was fully fleshed in my head and came to me. And I think, since we're talking in this free and liberated way of like really getting into the story, there are so many reasons why someone could need this procedure.
Mhm.
A character like the one that Brittany plays, we set that up to show you all those reasons why someone could need that. And those are all just as valid and necessary. And if you didn't really think they were, which I hope you would, then that was kind of landing the final gut punch. Well, if this doesn't change your mind, well, that. And I think the reason it was easy to write as well is partly because I have my own lived experience of needing this procedure, which is something I talk about occasionally, but not often, because no one undergoes this procedure, by the way. It's not an easy thing to go through. No one comes to it easily. It's not like some form of, contraception that some people think it to be. And look, whatever your reason is, I am judgment free of that, because I don't even judge any reason why you might need it. In my case, I had a third pregnancy that was not viable. And I had two young daughters at the time. And without that, what ended up being a life-saving procedure, I would not be around to look after the two daughters that I have today. And so when we talk about life, we have to think about the ones that are here. Whether it's the moms, whether it's the daughters, sons who may lose a mom, like there's so much nuance to this and there's so much complexity to it, but it's also very simple at the same time, which is you got to do what you got to do.
Right. Abortion is healthcare. There we go.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Now, Brittany, what drew you into this project? When you received the script, what was that experience like for you?
Well, I always go into everything that I read with a lens of, will this stretch me as an actor? Is it something that I've, done before? And, I had never done a short film before. So I went into it thinking, I wonder what this could be, and then when I was following the story and I was so riveted by each of the decisions that Rachel was making, and I really was invested in her as a character. And then when that switch happened and the twist happened, it went honestly down to my toes. I immediately started crying. It was such a, sorry, my dog is yelling at me. She doesn't like when I don't pay attention to
She's
her.
like, don't do Zooms.
Yeah, she wants this ball so bad. Sorry, this is a very important conversation that doesn't pertain to dogs. But yeah, I think when I read that twist, I think what I loved about the project is that I was on this journey. I was on this beautiful storytelling journey, and I didn't see it coming. And I've read scripts my whole life, and I usually can feel or understand what someone is going for, or I can expect the twist to happen, and I did not see it coming whatsoever. And I think that's the best form of storytelling and artistry in a way, is that you're taken on a journey and then you feel something within your body that forces you to have a reaction. And that's why we do this, is to feel, and to liken ourselves to these characters that we get to watch.
I think maybe at this point we should explicitly say what the twist is for
Did
people.
I do that? I'm sorry. Should I?
No. We should. I think we should tell people. And again, spoilers. Nazarene, I'm going to let you do the reveal. You wrote this, came out of your brain. So why don't you tell our audience what we're talking about when we talk about a jaw-dropping twist, because there really is one.
Well, Brittany's playing Rachel Johnson, who is a young single parent who is trying to raise her two kids the best way she can. And basically, the film is set up in such a way that she is crossing straight lines to get an abortion, which you believe is for her. And there are angels like the one that Mo Collins plays in our film who aid that journey. But when we get to the final point of our destination after a beautiful kind of mother-daughter road trip in which Rachel is trying to give her daughter the last gasp of childhood, and also some uplifting moments in terms of their connection. She's been forced to become a woman before her time, but it's just trying to recapture her childhood and the memory of that. And, living with Brittany in through all of this as if it's her pain. Once you land the reveal and you get to the clinic and you understand that this abortion was really for her daughter who hasn't even really celebrated her 10th birthday yet, and is about to, that heartbreaking reveal hopefully then makes you go back and watch and revisit all of those scenes and understand that the pain of even when she's like trying to find the funds from the piggy bank. I mean, that's the worst thing a parent can do, is take money out of their child's savings and their piggy bank. But that's how desperate the situation is. And then afterwards you realize, gosh, this is how tragic it is. This kid's own piggy bank money savings is having to go towards paying for her abortion. And you realize just the stoic strength of Rachel, played so wonderfully by Brittany, and the vulnerability of Maddie, played by Juliet. Like, how can you not have a heart? How can you not have compassion? How are we making our children go through this? How are we making anyone go through this?
Well, you do play an angel in this in this film, and with you know, with I felt like such a deep backstory. It felt like there's not a lot of dialogue, but there's a lot of heart in your character. Can you talk to that? Can you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah. One of the things I actually like about the short film, and I think it's important, is that I think, and look, I'm a white woman, and we know that it's a lot of white women that unfortunately aided and abetted the loss of Roe v. Wade with their voting.
Definitely. Way to go.
Yeah, way to go, ladies. Vote against your best interests. But so, it was important. It was super important to me to be as many women as possible in this role. And I like that at the top, people do wonder, because it's a preconceived notion about her that she might be judgy lady. And I think that's good. Because those are the ones that we need to bring over to this side. But I wanted to represent as many women as possible in that moment so that they could see themselves in her, whether you're just some conservative person that has always been anti-abortion. This is a very startling circumstance. I know that a lot of the conservatives who vote against this better interest for women is that it's just a bunch of sassy 18-year-olds that using abortion as birth control or something. It's not even if that is it, it's none of their business. But there's so much misconception about the scope of abortion care and the importance of it and how it is health care, right? It's health care. And I'm going too long here. I wanted women to see themselves in her. And if nothing else, to catch on to empathy, to understand empathy. Let that be perhaps what switches in the brain, that you too could be this woman. You too could reach out with empathy and have understanding and be helpful and be the best human you could be in that moment. I wanted it to be every woman in a way.
Brittany, can you talk about just the duality of acting in this role? Because for the first 3/4 of the film, as an audience, we believe that we're watching Rachel's abortion story. How did you hold, I guess, was it difficult to hold that reveal in you, or how did you do it? Because it's handled so, it must have been kind of delicate to walk that line.
Thank you. That was definitely my intention, but also something that I really, really wanted to. A reason why I wanted to do the short film to begin with was that duality and portraying someone who you think is actually thinking one way but is doing something differently, with the same sort of through line strength, but it's for a different reason. That was part of the reason that Nazareth and I bonded so much over the characters that I wanted to portray that. And I wanted, if you watch the film again, for those little moments, like when I walk out to the table to give them the pie, I'm actually looking at Maddie. I'm looking at Juliet's character and sizing her up and seeing if she realizes that we just took the pregnancy test, And I think Nazra and I really worked on these like tiny specific moments that if you, again, on rewatch, would actually understand that it was done in a different perspective. And I think with creating Rachel, there was a stoicism, there was a strength that I really wanted to have a part of her character where you wouldn't be able to see what she was going through, because that's just the type of woman that she was. You do it out of necessity and because you're a mother. And so you wouldn't be able to see her breaking down. And I think that was a huge part of why I wanted to play her. And thankfully that came across, I hope.
I think the mothering really came across for me. It really resonated with me. Just the lengths that you will go to. And I thought it was actually a beautiful rendering. Nazarene, as you were describing in the beginning, of just trying to give this little girl, trying to make this road trip an adventure, knowing kind of what was the ultimate goal, but just trying to keep it light, just trying to make a bonding event out of it. It was really beautiful. And on rewatch, it really comes across. And all those little details, you really feel and see them. Brittany, can you talk about your relationship with Juliet? And actually, before we even talk about that, we should talk about casting. Like, what an incredible job of casting you did, Nazarene. I know you have these connections, but also finding a child who can communicate all of that. Juliet she's a remarkable actress. How did you connect?
She really is incredible. I think Brittany can also speak to some of that because they certainly spent so much time on set together, between takes and bonding and so on. And she's just very professional and she knows what this story needed to be. Big credit to our casting directors who put her on my radar. And as soon as I saw her, I just knew that she would be who I needed. And she has a mom who talked her through the story. In fact, they were at my house yesterday. We were hanging out just to celebrate her birthday and New Year and the fact that we're on the Oscars shortlist and all the things. Reading was there too. And they became a family unit, the three of them together. I think I also credit Brittany with so much of that because she was like the mother figure off screen as well as on screen. And so sometimes you'd look at them and you'd like, even when they weren't filming, you'd forget that they weren't a family,
Right.
It was just amazing. And I think Juliet particularly, there are moments that I look at in the film, when she's saying, "Can we go?" and the desolation in that moment, or when her mom is being, manhandled in the diner and they have that look between them, or when Brittany is so tired of saying no to her child, but has to say it again by the side of the road when she's looking at the carousel. And you just see this forlorn look through to like, one of the things that always catches my eyes when they're in the clinic and Rachel is beside her trying to kind of comfort her child through this procedure that no child should have to ever go through in the first place, but they do need to go through it to have some kind of life after the event. You see her legs trembling at the end of the bed. And, we've seen Brittany emoting as this mother in anguish and pain right up until this point. And now we're focusing on Juliet and her pain and her tears. And actually, we do this thing. We change the aspect ratio. Another thing that I can't talk about, but I can now because we're talking openly. Like we're in a 2:40 aspect ratio because it's Rachel's POV all the way through until, and that's that beautiful scene. And I can remember just Brittany, I cut her off too early the first time. She had that beautiful tear going down her face. And then I was like, "I'm so sorry. Do you think we can do that again?" And then she, of course, is Brittany Snow.
Oh my God.
The person who can do anything at any moment, at any time. And she brings that tear down. And then we go into her memory scape of that night, of what happened, to try and explain without sensationalizing it, this shared memory that they have. And as we're going in through the past and we're seeing that, when we come out, we're on the other side with Juliet. And now through that memory, we've slowly shifted into a 4:3 aspect ratio, because now we're in Juliet's POV, telling that story for her because she's the one going through it. So those tears that get kind of matched between Brittany, that single tear, and the one that Juliet brings in the clinic, to me is just, how did I get so lucky with all of these actors, but particularly with Brittany and Juliet having to carry the weight of this emotionality? I just consider myself the luckiest person in the world that somehow someone up there was looking out for me and brought everybody that needed to be on this project together.
Well, that reveal and that single tear that you produced multiple times, I I watched this film on a train and I literally gasped. Like my body did a shout that you could hear. It like barked. I couldn't, my jaw hit the floor. I could.
That's what I thought when I read that, when I read it.
Yeah.
It went down to my feet. Like I had like an actual reaction. And I think, you know, you're very kind, Ezra, to think that like I did anything, but it really had so much to do with your writing. And I think that's why so many great people are a part of this and we believe in it. I guess I'll put myself in that category. I don't know, but like I think that it's because there's such an intention with the story, and it's so clear and it's so smart, and there's nothing that is like it where it produces that sort of visceral reaction. And so to be able to land that tear, it's really easy. You just think about the reality of the situation. I mean, this was a real true story, and I think that still strikes a chord with me. You know,
how did you create, I mean, I guess, how did you create a relationship with Juliet? You had so many intimate scenes with her. How did you cultivate that that give and take with a kid, really?
Yeah, I mean, I think I was a little nervous because I've never played a mom before, which is very strange because I am very much a mom age. So I was going into it a little unsure of how you deal with kids who were playing your children. But I think what was so beautiful about Juliet and Reading was that they were so purely, genuinely, they were just real kids. They weren't precocious in this way of trying to get, you know, their face to the camera. They didn't have this sort of child actor lens on what they were doing. I'm a child actor, and I've definitely was not like that. I was like, can I be the cutest person in the room at 6 years old? You know, I go to therapy for that. And so I was really impressed with just how present they were and how much they just wanted to have fun. And I think we really bonded over, you know, just being together and having a great time and being present with each other. And I loved both of them so much. I actually, you know, I had my therapy sessions afterwards, and I was like, I think I want kids. Like after them. So they really changed some things for me.
Wow, they really unlocked something.
yeah, they did.
Well, the intimacy is real. Like you really feel it. And I do want to say that I was just spinning off of something that you just said. I feel like there is not one wasted moment in this film. It's approximately 20 minutes long, and not a single frame feels superfluous, especially when you rewatch it. You're like, every single thing is connected to something that's happening later. And that's, in a way, I mean, this is a crazy question, but in a way, was the time limit a gift? Like, did you feel yourself like fighting your way out of a time limit box? Or were you like, this is the exact story I want to tell, these are the exact parameters, and I'm going to work within this?
To be frank, I was like, okay, I want to have a conversation across the political divide, and I want to do it in a non-judgmental way. I want people to do the thing that Brittany talked about, which is to feel something. And if they if you move someone sufficiently enough emotionally, then maybe it will force them to think long after the film is done. And I really wanted to lean into the muscular storytelling nature. I didn't want to, sure, there's a longer version of this that I know I could tell. But for this story, in this iteration, It was 10 or 11, 10 and a half pages, I think, on the initial draft. And it was very easy to write. I wrote it in about 2 or 3 hours. I don't think I fully answered that question earlier, so I'll answer it now. And then it pretty much stayed. The whole story stayed exactly the same, bar, you know, adjusting for practical locations or situations that come up that are just organic to filming and when you have to troubleshoot, but pretty much the whole story is intact. And I knew I wanted to just have, I think I've spoken about this before, the depth of what felt like a full-length feature film in the span of 20 odd minutes, but only felt 5 minutes in the watching because of the transportive nature of it. It did help. I just wanted to do sparse dialogue as much as possible. And even some of the dialogue that's in there, it's the stuff that Brittany was just feeling naturally, like when she's telling the children to go to bed, you know, she's just bringing that in the moment of like feeling it and being it. My dialogue was very sparse because I really wanted to lean into the visual storytelling. And, you know, I don't want to go on too long because I want to hear.
No, it's great. But I agree with you. Like, I'm going to take what you said, which is muscular storytelling. And I agree with you because the minute the short film starts, you see a pregnancy test and you're like in it. And you just go.
Yeah, and I had all these image systems. It's called Red, White, and Blue. It's an allusion to the flag. But I had these image systems of like the 2 red bars of the pregnancy test opening us up, you know, the white, joyous daylight and carnival lights, carousel lights of the road trip to the blue clinical setting of the clinic that we go to. You know, I told this with a beginning, middle, and end just because it's a short film. I don't think you can't have character arcs and character arcs for everybody, but also just to be telling that story as if it is a long length film. And one thing I just want to mention about the duality, which I think is brilliant about, actually 2 things I can mention, then I will promise to shut up. But, you know, when you're seeing Brittany watching her daughter on that carousel scene, and then we go back to the past and we're thinking, oh, look, and she's pregnant with Jake, clearly, because this is like 5 years ago, and she's remembering the child that was. That moment in the first watch is supposed to be playing like this wistfulness of watching her daughter, and she's pregnant and she has these 2 kids that she loves very much. You know, we might be thinking, can she even go through with it? Of course, when you get to the other side of it, what you're realizing is this is my child. She should have been able to stay a child. And I'm able to give her this joy. I've said no to the pancake fundraiser at school. I've said no to going to the zoo. And I've just said no to this, but actually I can't say no. I need to give her the last chance at childhood that she's going to have before she goes into this procedure. And Brittany holding that duality is just remarkable to me, how she managed to just translate the words so perfectly onto the screen. Everyone did. There's one other thing that I want to say about Mo as well, but I'm going to stop there for now.
What? I'm like, what is it?
Yeah.
Say it. I want to hear it.
Mo doesn't get her.
I'm terrified.
Yeah.
No, first of all, I love Mo Collins dearly. She and I have worked together. She is such an extraordinary human being and such a wonderful actor that I just felt so blessed that she said yes to this. There are no small parts. You talk about how there's nothing wasted, everything is intentional. That scene, her name is Margot. Thank you, Margot, for helping Rachel. You know, there are no small parts in the sense of there is a whole story there. These characters are hopefully 3-dimensionalized, where what is it in this woman's backstory that meant she saw this other woman in need? And were we to maybe stay with her and go off with Margot, maybe we'd see what happened in her life, what her story is, what her daily life looks like, why she was able to see Rachel in need and reach out to her or be part of that elephant herd that we talk about at the end of the film. If we were to follow her, I could tell a whole story about Margot, and maybe I should. And maybe Mo, if you're willing to do this with me again, we should do that. But we don't, because we need to tell this story with Rachel and with Maddie and so on. So even Ashley Williams, who plays, you know, the friend Stella, who helps her out. These are women seeing each other and helping each other out in the way that more often than not we do.
Yes. Seeing Rachel just literally stacking pennies and nickels to pay for her child's abortions, just writing every dollar down on a notepad. And then Margot comes in and slips the money into a billfold. Angel, that's...
I mean, there's little clues even on the fridge, which our production designer put there through the script that I had written. Like, you don't even realize it. You may not see it, but the depth of hopefully storytelling is there. Her car has been impounded, you know, parking tickets that she can't pay for. So that's part of the cost of it all.
Right.
You know, it's a short film, so we don't go into that, but the detail is there.
It's all there.
Kind of Easter egg kind of way for anyone who wants to see it. You know, that, but we're just kind of moving on with the journey because it's a short film and we want to get you to the heart of the story.
And let's talk about, I mean, we've been talking for a while, but let's continue talking just a little bit longer, because I want to talk about female voices and how really, apart from the voice of the young son, this is exclusively female voices. You're a female director. There's, you know, 15 films in this category, 2.5 directed by women.
Oh, God.
You know.
You
know how that goes.
So interesting you say that, because now I'm thinking, hang on a second. Did anyone ever win this category as a female? I don't know, to be truthful, because, you know, Jane Campion and Catherine Hurd, I think they're the only ones that have won in the actual main category. So, yeah.
Well, let's talk about we don't need to talk about the importance of female voices. They're just important.
Yeah. If anybody needs that story, we have a longer thing to talk about.
Yeah, we need more women's voices. Mo, what is it like for you when you work with female directors? It's a different experience.
It is a different experience. There's almost an immediate feeling seen and heard. Do you know what I mean? Like, that's something you just kind of feel like you're stepping right into when you step onto the set, or, you know, pre-production, whatever it is. It's like there's already a door open on the way you can speak to your role, to the story that's being told. There's just an understanding it, you know, almost exclusively. I wouldn't say exclusively with women, because, you know, but mostly. Right. And that makes it easier, because then you're all those steps ahead in terms of getting to your best creative product, you know, because you can just kind of eliminate some of the bullshit and whatever you're stepping through. You know, if it's a male, sometimes there's some stepping throughs. Is, you know, you don't want to emasculate, you don't want to, like, you wonder if you're going to come across as you know, hysterical or whatever it is, or bitchy, whatever. Like, that can all go away, because you just sort of, you're talking to another woman.
There can be a shorthand.
It is a shorthand.
Shared,
total shorthand.
Some shared vocabulary.
Yep.
That can make it make you breathe a little bit easier.
Yeah. I always get very, very excited when I see it's a woman. I just do, you know, and I've always gotten that way too, in regards to just getting to work, you know, side by side actresses as well. Like, oh, this is fun.
And Nazrin, your daughter sang the song in the car.
Yeah.
That's a great moment in the car. When you're singing with your daughter, it's beautiful.
It's so great. I was saying to Juliet yesterday, I was like, oh, you guys have actually sung together on screen, you know, and the fact that they get to sing with Brittany Snow as well, or Brittany Snow singing to their lyrics.
That's pretty cool.
It's like, oh my God, this is like a bucket list moment, I think, that they'll remember for the rest of their lives. But it was born out of necessity. It was because it was born out of desire and necessity, because, as you mentioned, I made this creative choice that I kind of didn't tell anyone about, because it's important to say we had a lot of great male allies on this. You know, we had superlative team working with us, my DP, my editor, Adam Sochitsky, and Phil McLaughlin, respectively, but a whole host of other male allies. But yeah, there was a real presence of women on this set making this film. I think, you know, I'm going off topic a little bit. I'll come back, I promise you. But even Mo will tell you, one of her best friends ended up organically being in, I am going to come back to the song.
Handsy guy up the
Handsy guy. One of the
yes,
I didn't know.
I show up on set and I'm about to do my first scene and walk on, you know, the count is about to happen, and I look over and I see Pete Breitmeyer And I'm like, no, no way. And I'm waving, and he was looking right at me, but not waving back. And so after the take, I went up and I'm like, Pete, the hell are you doing, Pete? Like, what? So that was just a kismet moment.
So he has no lines of dialogue. And
Yeah.
neither does Neil Napier, who plays the diner owner. That was a deliberate choice because I wanted to make sure that the only people who spoke on this were the people who had reproductive rights that were affected, other than the young, unadulterated voice of Jake, who through his mother and his sister's experience is like the hopeful future of the kind of ally that we had on our film, but also we hope will grow up and help to basically enshrine protections like this, because we need those people. And so I was very deliberate about wanting to have predominantly female voices in this. And so those two actors are phenomenal, you know, and they without hesitation had no problem with the fact that I deliberately gave them no lines of dialogue, and they acted their hearts out. And didn't need, you know, that thing that sometimes actors need. Please forgive me for saying this, but you know, people like to say lines because they do. Like, why wouldn't
say lines?
Yeah, but they were okay with it, that I gave the voice across. And so when we came to it, we had no song. Like, we were a short film on a short budget. Honest to God, I was producing right up until the night before. I did not go to bed till 3 or 4 a.m. And I was due to be on set the next day because I was keeping this production together by hook or by crook, however I could, and walking in the next day and hoping everything would turn out okay. And of course it did, because we had the wonderful talent that we did. But the week before, part of that producing was the fact that I had written in Cyndi Lauper's Girls Just Want to Have Fun, because I used to play that in the car driving my kids to school, and it would be the way for us to wake up. And because that was a seminal song for me growing up, I also wanted to kind of talk about the female empowerment of that song and have it subliminally live with them. Of course, you know, I didn't have the timeline or the money to go and get that song. What was I going to do? And luckily, a family member who's a musician, Toby Jepson, he has this song with his band Wayward Sons, happened to be visiting LA from the UK the week before filming, and he offered me songs, and I said, I really want to have female vocals on this. And he said, not a problem, because he knew my daughters write and compose and sing, play instruments. They're very talented in that way. He recorded them in my house the week before. And suddenly we had a song that could play through the radio as if it was a pop chart song. And then even the songs in the diner, our two musicians, our musical artists, Alex Clark and Phil Medley, those were also male vocals, and they re-recorded those for us.
Oh my God, I love it. Okay, well, before we sign off, I mean, what are the hopes? What are your hopes for this? What are your big wishes for it? I mean, Brittany talked about like hitting people emotionally, and I think that it does. If they watch it, it will hit them, right? You need to watch it.
That's what I just keep saying to people is, obviously this is a polarizing topic, and you know, me as an actor, I'm not going out to promote it with any sort of, you know, pedantic, you know, like pointing of any kind. I just want people to watch it and then talk to me. And I think that that's such a marking of something that I really stand behind, is I can show a piece of art or something that we've all created without it feeling like I'm trying to preach any sort of message. I just want you to watch it. And I think that people's minds do get changed after watching it. And that to me has been a life-changing sort of revelation, that people are actually commenting or DMing me or things like that saying, you know, I now feel differently. And I'm like,
oh, that gives me chills.
It gives me chills. Yeah.
That gives me chills, because it is a piece of art. It's not a lesson. It's not didactic. We're not like learning the rules. We're just seeing a slice of a slice of life in this family that is going through this. And I think it's a gift to people. That's art, man. That's what art can do.
It's art.
Well, I just want to thank you so much for being on this Zoom. I encourage anyone who hasn't seen the short film already to watch it and love it as much as I do. Thank you so much for being here today and talking it through and like creating this piece of art for us to enjoy and be emotionally wrenched by.
Thank you so much. I will just add this is that we told this story so that all the people who could not tell their stories for themselves, the unseen, unheard voices, could feel represented by us telling this story for them and making them feel seen and heard. So if we've done that, then hopefully we've played a small part in changing hearts and minds in the way that they need to be changed.
Love it.
Thank you.
Thank you.